So that's apparently live. Fun. I don't expect anyone to show up. I haven't been here for 2 weeks. I've abandoned you. I have left you, nice, sweet people, completely alone. Not here answering your questions. I was even a little bit late today because I had to do an adult thing, and I had to talk to an accountant about taxes. I was like, I don't know how to do anything. He's just like, what do you do for work? I'm like, I'm a database consultant. He's like, that sounds smart. And I was like, yeah, but I just don't know anything about money or taxes. And he was like, it's funny when people think that when you're smart about one thing, that should have carry over to other things. Not the case. I am useless and hopeless when it comes to other endeavors. All right. So I have to Google some tax forms, and I have to go to some websites about dealing with stuff, and it's just not enjoyable. Not enjoyable at all. Anyway, there are exactly 2 of you here, which is exactly how many people I would expect to show up after 2 weeks of not being. So if you have a question, you can ask a question. My video just showed up. That's weird. I had a weird error before this thing even started. Jesus Christ, what's going on here? Before we even started, when I went to start up the webcast, it told me that my webcam was in use, and I had to unplug it and plug it back in. But then video showed up immediately. Expatriate, never pay tax. I would love to. I don't know. Live somewhere in Europe. My new retirement plan is smoking cigarettes in a French graveyard. That's how I'm going to spend my waning years. Getting ready to die, surrounded by death and a cloud of cigarette smoke. Assuming that you're still allowed to smoke by then. I don't know if I'm going to be able to retire until I'm very old. So there's that to look forward to. I hope anyway. All right, taking a look around here. I'm getting some blog posts scheduled for the next few weeks because all the travel and other nonsense really put me behind my blogging schedule. I wasn't in my game with that. And, getting caught up is tough because then I have to think about stuff very quickly. Whatever. All right. 6 of you. One of you has to have a question about something. SQL Server. I don't know. What else do you people do? What do you do for fun? I need a haircut. This wave is annoying me. I'm going to just mess my hair up so I don't have to look at it. There we go. I feel better now. It's getting aggravating. 7 of you and no SQL Server questions. Man, it's a downer. I was in Minneapolis, Minnesota, visiting a client on site. Without revealing too much, it was a large, what do you call it? God, why can't I think of the name now? CPA accounting. It's a large accounting company, and it was very funny to have me walking around there, looking the way I look, with all these people who have clearly done all the traditionally correct things in life, just staring at me. And this, why is anyone listening to him? Why is anyone talking to him? I'm like, huh? It was amusing. Anyway, we have some questions. Let's see. Do we have any recommendations on where to start if you want to enable column store indexes? Well, yeah. First is to figure out if it's even good for what you're doing. If you're doing OLTP, you probably don't need column store. And that's just kind of the end of it. If you have a data warehouse or you have some reporting needs, then column store might be a good idea. But further that depends on which version of SQL Server you're on. If you're on 2012, it's not a good. Column store is not your friend on 2012. 2014, it might kind of be your friend. 2016, you'll be on okay terms. 2017, clustered column store is probably going to be your jam. Yeah. So 2016. Yeah, so I would, you could try clustered column store out. I can promise I can talk English. So take a look at. So a kind of a fun way to see if batch mode would be helpful at all is to just create like an empty temp table with a clustered column store index on it and do like that left join on 1 = 0 to one of your data warehouse queries and see if you get batch mode operations and see if it improves the speed at all. So there's a good way to figure out if it's good, if it will help at all, is to do that and get batch mode involved on some level. Just so you can be like, well, like rather than going through all the pain of converting, because like there's some limitations with column store, especially in 2016, especially like if you have like lob data or like varchar max and varchar max var binary XML stuff, like you can't create a clustered column store index on a table with that stuff in it. So I would just be careful of that, before you go through the emotionally exhausting chore of making sure that you can actually create those column store indexes. Then I would just create some phony temp tables and see if batch mode helps anything. Peter says that he tweeted a question after the last office hours. That was like 3 weeks ago now, man. 3 damn weeks ago. I can't remember 3 days ago. 3 hours ago was fuzzy. See, Farah says, what are some common misconceptions you encounter among people new to SQL Server? God, like everything. It depends, like, I don't know, like depending on how new they are, they might not have any conceptions that could be misconceptions. So other than the fact that like a lot of the times, people just think it's like an Excel file, right? Like what they see in Management Studio is the way data is stored. It's like, this will be easy. I can do whatever I want. But some, I don't know, common misconceptions. Jeez Louise. People think it's a lot smarter than it is, so that it'll take care of a lot more things than it actually will. Databases are not your friend. They do not have your back. Databases want you to fail. Lily says, what version of SQL was the client on? 2014, I believe, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it was 2014 because because I wanted to see if Query Store was around, but they weren't on 2016 yet. Let's see here. Peter says, given proc 1 with 2 batches with 2 plans each, are there 4 possible proc plan combos or 2? 4. If branching and store procedures means that when an initial plan is compiled, all possible plans are explored and compiled. What really sucks is that they do it with the initial set of variables. So if like any part of your branching is like, if you want to select from this table, then we'll follow this branch, or if you want to join these tables and we follow a different branch, then you get, and I don't know, it's just weird bad things happen with nulls. It's awful and terrible, and you should either use dynamic SQL or nested store procedures to do it, because if logic and store procedures is just stinky. Oh man, I got thinking about smoking cigarettes in a French graveyard, and now, of course, all I want to do is smoke a cigarette in a French graveyard. Damn. Max says, can you explain what you meant in bad estimates and locking? I couldn't get the point. What did you do to fix the issue? Yeah, so in my blog post, I think it was today. I forget when things get published. I ran into an issue recently with declared variables, and declared variables were causing a bad overestimate in how many rows might result from a where clause. So what was happening is the query was running, the local variable was in use in the where clause, and as a result, many more rows were expected to be returned. So the lock granularity was at the page level rather than at the row level. When if you use a recompile hint or you use a correct type of parameter or literal or whatever, then you'll get the correct estimate and you'll get key level locks. So yeah, that was that. Peter says hashtag SQL office hours. Let's make it happen. Boy, that sounds exhausting. Who has time for that? Is that Twitter? Sounds awful. Twitter's the worst. I wish that I could just run screaming from Twitter. Run screaming. Speaking of which, I'm going to see if anything is in there. What are you saying here? Different thing. Yeah, apparently that was. Wait, Forrest, what did you just like? Did this thing publish early? Oh, it must be just a blank video. Damn. Whatever. Farah says, if you were at Microsoft, how would you solve parameter sniffing? That's a great question, and I think the answer would be that you couldn't just have a single iteration of a plan based on the first set of parameters that get passed in. You would need to be a little bit more, I guess Microsoft would call it intelligent about whether you pursue a parameterized plan, or whether you go looking for other possibilities. So just taking the simplest example of store procedure with a single parameter. If SQL Server looks at the histogram for that parameter and notes some amount of skew across values, it should mark that plan as a candidate for additional branches. And if the histogram doesn't denote skew, then it should just say, no, this one's going to be pretty stable no matter what. And then if you have a candidate plan, Peter says automatic plan correction. No, because I don't want SQL Server changing its idea mid-flight. I want SQL Server caching a plan, and I want SQL Server using a completely different query from the start. So what I would like to see happen is you would have like a candidate plan for say typical example, Stack Overflow database users table, reputation equals 2. You look at the reputation histogram, the reputation equals 1 users have quite a different set of data in the table from pretty much any other reputation, like more than all the other reputations combined. So what you would want to do is have a plan that is sort of suitable for unskewed values, and then a plan that is rather suitable for the skewed values. So you would have you take this plan, SQL Server would look at a parameter for that plan, look at the histogram that it's going to use for that, and say, all right, well, I know that I see that reputation equals 1 is a doozy. There's I don't know, however many users for that, 3 million or so users. And then I would look at the rest of the values and say, well, altogether, they hardly break 3 million altogether. There's 1.5 million of them. For any value other than 1, we can use this plan, and then for reputation equals 1, we can use this plan. It would be a matter of judging candidacy based on histogram data, which can be wrong, but I would much rather see the attempt made than just kind of left it kick in the wind. I don't want to see plan correction while a query is in flight, because that seems hacky. That seems tacked on to me. I would rather see SQL Server do this when a plan is first compiled, to say, look, there are different branches that are going to make sense for different levels of data flow. So I think like the next value down from 1 is like a 10 or 11 or something. And so it might make sense to say, hey, look, we might need a different plan for the 10s and 11s, but everyone else, or the ones and 10s and 11s, but everyone else can use this kind of small plan. So I think really the solution would be sort of an initial look at histograms involved and figuring out if there is skew in those histograms, and if skew is detected, then you would cache different versions of the plan. Just because SQL Server already has compile time and runtime values in the plan, so it knows there's a difference. It's able to sniff the runtime value and do stuff with it. And if you already had a plan available for a different parameter, you wouldn't have to worry about plan caching, or you wouldn't have to worry about compiling a new plan at runtime. You would just use a different branch of the plan based on the runtime value. Seems easy to me. I know it's going to be harder when there's like one of those like 50 parameter store procedures, but those probably aren't the best candidates to start trying to fix parameter sniffing for. There's like, let's say between 1 and 5 parameters, it might be doable. Granted, there's going to be some weird math in there, but math isn't my strong suit, so I wouldn't be in charge of that. I would just draw the big picture and let other people fill in the details. Yeah, it'd be like a Franken plan, right? It would just be like sewing different chunks of query plans together based on what's going on. It'd be fun. I think it'd be fun. They should hire me just to do that. I would love to do that. Just get rid of plan. You could just get rid of plan caching. We do have query store, so we don't need the plan cache. We could just turn on query store and say, hey, you match this plan. Let's use that. Right? That'd be fun. Peter says, any thoughts on scaling that to multiple histograms, or is most sniffing trouble isolated to one set of stats usually? Yes and no. I think there are some statistics that are generally more uniform than others. Date values tend to be a bit more uniform. Granted, you'll have some skew if you're thinking about like an OLTP thing. If you have a big sale or like Black Friday comes along, you probably have some more values in there then. But I think generally, if you'll have a fairly stable, per day number of orders or something. So, that's one thing. You might grow like year over year or month over month, but that's where people generally aren't, when they look at historical stuff, they're probably looking at like just the newest stuff anyway. So kind of like less of an issue there. Scaling it to multiple histograms, yeah, of course it'd be tougher, but at the same time, it's pretty easy to judge at that point, if you're using multiple histograms, which of those histograms have skew involved in them. So it would purely be for histograms that show skew at compile time. It wouldn't be like, every histogram involved. It'd be like your histogram would have to show like, some amount of skew towards one value or a group of values in order to make sense, and for that to make sense. If they got rid of the plan cache, Josh, what would I do with my time not writing XML queries? What would I do with myself? What would I look at and stare and point in shock and horror? What would I do? What would I do? There is not coffee enough in the world today. Work out more. That'd be nice. I mean, blog less, work out more. Ooh, Darren's firing some shots. He says, obviously you don't run high enough batch request to second databases. No plan caching would chew up your CPU. I don't know. Depends on if you're running high batch request to second workloads. Typically, you have a bunch of pretty small queries running. It doesn't take a lot to generate a query plan for a pretty small query. Like usually when you see like the plans that take a lot of compile time CPU, they'll be larger plans, right? They're like plans with a lot of exploration space, a lot of operators, lots of joins and whatever. So I don't know. I don't know about that. If you're doing OLTP with 4,000 line store procedures, I think you're messing something up. The single-use ones truly eat up 32 procs. If you go to ericdarlingdata.com and click on consulting, we can talk more about that. SQL Dev DBA says smoke cigs in a French graveyard. Yes, please. That is something that I would do eventually. I don't know. Let's see. Do you have any insight on how the optimizer chooses per predicate for a single plan, or is it time to nerd snipe? I don't know what that means. How the optimizer chooses per predicate for a single plan? Well, I mean, per predicate, it depends on the cardinality estimator version. It's either like the assumption of a complete lack of cohesiveness, or it's like the exponential back off thing in the new one. So it depends on the cardinality estimator. Let's see here. Peter says, "What do they say at the gym? Don't skip recompile day." I've never heard that at the gym. Mostly, I just hear either vague words of encouragement or someone. Yesterday, I was at the gym, and I had finished doing squats. I was doing overhead presses, getting them up there, right? Getting them up, and I was in between sets, and this guy walked over to an empty rack, and he was like, "Finally, this thing's empty. I've been waiting like days for an empty rack." And I'm like, that is a problem at my gym. There's not that many racks, and sometimes waiting for one sucks. But then he, I'm like, yeah, it sucks waiting sometimes, just gotta be patient sometimes, and like all the racks are like platforms, right? So can there's like a place to squat or do presses or whatever, and then like there's a platform in back where you could deadlift from. So depending on what you want to do, two people can use a platform at a time and just kind of switch off. Like I wouldn't want to be deadlifting while some dude was squatting. That'd be a little awkward. But anyway, like I'm feeling like, all right, well this guy clearly needs a rack for something important. He's going to get in there and do some rack stuff. And then he proceeded to stretch, do planks, and then take a 25-pound plate and do like head circles with it, like back around doing this stuff. And I thought, sir, there is not a single thing that you've done in the last 15 minutes that required a rack. Never mind you waiting 2 days to get on a rack. Like, pal, go. You could do that at home. It's not fair. It's not fair. Let's see here. I got lost in that. Josh replied. Corey says, "Have you heard of event sourcing? Ever seen it implemented? Seems like a lot of temporal tables." No, I don't think it's a very popular thing. I don't think I would want to talk to anyone doing it. It sounds dreadful. Sorry. Let's see. Darren says, "Squat day, I walked in and all the racks had weights on them, had to alter my workout. Come to find they weren't being used." Yeah, people do that. That's why whenever I see that, I just take a seat near the racks and I look at my watch for a little bit. And then if I don't see anyone come use a rack, so much like a deadlock victim, I pick whichever rack has the least amount of weight on it. And then I take that off, figuring if whoever has the least amount of weight on a rack would probably be the easiest for me to like stare down if they were like, "I was using that." I was like, "No, you weren't. You were off doing lat pull downs or something, nerd." All right. Well, I'm glad that Josh and Darren are friends now. Maybe you guys can. I don't know. What do people do when they make friends online? You like meet up for coffee or something? I don't know anymore. I don't make friends anymore, especially not online. Chat rooms are for losers. Farah says, speaking of chat rooms, Farah says, if you had to pick a NoSQL database to learn, which would it be? Boy, I think just because of the amount of time I spend trying to convince people to use it, I would like I wouldn't say like for life, but the first one I would learn would be Elasticsearch because I think the stuff that it does, like as far as like how it does text search versus SQL Server's crappy full text indexing catalog search is phenomenal. I think there's some great stuff that Elasticsearch does. Also, it's free. Like free. You can go download it for free. You can install it for free. You can run it in production for free. If you want support, it costs money, like Postgres. But like on the front of things, it's totally free to just learn and deploy. And I think it would be fun to mess with. Unfortunately, I am a terrible developer, and I would have no idea how to get data into it or how to query it whatsoever. None. I would need the world's dumbest API and like a pack of crayons in order to get anything done or working in there. It would not be my best work. Peter says, reading up a bit on Mongo. Boo. Come on, man. Mongo? Use what is it? Redis or React, or what are the other cool ones? What's that? What's that thing Microsoft has in Azure? Whatever it's called. Cosmopolitan DB or something. Yeah, Josh likes RavenDB. Josh likes RavenDB because of one specific feature. Don't let him con you into thinking that RavenDB is amazing. What RavenDB does is it tells you why certain indexes were skipped. And Josh thinks that would be a healthy add-on to SQL Server. I do too. I think that would be helpful, like especially during demos, to be like, why didn't SQL Server use that index? Here's exactly why. Because it would impact the reliability. Microsoft sucks at error messages. I tweeted about some today. They're god awful. I wish Microsoft should hire me to write error messages. I think that would bring some clarity to the situation. They should hire me to write error messages. They should hire Joe Obish to write KB articles. I think that would round things out for them. They'd probably go broke paying us though. We'd do a lot of writing. At least I think anyway. Can't believe this thing already has a thumbs up. Peter says, but then why would they need a consultant? Well, for what everyone else needs consultants for, Peter, to supplement existing staff that has some very clear weaknesses. That's what. Because whoever writes those error messages now, oh boy, you need help. Almost a complete lack of clarity. Punctuation, capitalization. It's wiggity whack, yo. Real wiggity whack. All right. We are coming up on the half-hour mark, and I'm seeing a distinct lack of sentences that end in question marks or comments that end in something else. So, Josh says Eric would replace all of the sys messages with sounds like a string problem. Perhaps, but I would at the very least point people in the right direction. It wouldn't be that please retry nonsense. I would say, yeah, I think you messed this up. Here's what you should do instead. Like if someone tried to, I don't know, do things that are bad before SQL Server 2019, I would throw in error messages. Like if they tried to create a scalar function, the first create, I would throw an error message. Be like, you sure? Look, this is what's going to happen. It's going to be bad if you do this. Unless you're a consultant just writing a demo about them, you should avoid that. Yeah, I am too old for this. It's time to go smoke cigarettes in a French graveyard. So thank you for joining me this week. I will at this rate. I think I will be back. I will not have anything in the way next Friday, so I should be able to do that. Actually, I would change all the error messages to "Don't at me." That would be it. Anyway, thanks for coming along. Thanks for watching. See you next time.